What if everything you have ever been told about belly fat is completely wrong? What if the reason you are still struggling, still frustrated, still staring in the mirror wondering why nothing is working is not because you lack discipline, not because you're not trying hard enough, but because you have been fighting the wrong enemy this entire time? I want you to stop for a second and really think about that. You have done the crunches, you have cut the carbs, you have dragged yourself to the gym when every part of you wanted to stay in bed, and yet that belly is still there, stubborn, unmoved, almost mocking you. That is not a willpower problem. That is an information problem. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you the information that changes everything. Here's the truth that most fitness content will never tell you. The fat you can grab, the soft, squishy, jiggly layer sitting just under your skin, is actually not your biggest problem. I know that sounds insane. You've been poking at it, hating it, trying to burn it off for years. But here's the thing. That fat, the stuff you can pinch between your fingers, is called subcutaneous fat, and it's essentially passive. It's just stored energy sitting there like money in a savings account. It's not doing anything sinister. It's not attacking your organs. It's just sitting there looking bad. That is not the enemy. The real enemy is something you cannot see, something you cannot touch, something you cannot feel until the damage is already done. Deep inside your torso, buried beneath your muscles, wrapped around your liver, your pancreas, and your intestines, there is a completely different kind of fat. It's called visceral fat. And unlike the fat under your skin, this stuff is not passive at all. It is biologically active. It behaves less like stored energy and more like a gland, a living, functioning tissue that constantly releases inflammatory chemicals into your bloodstream. It messes with your hormones. It drives insulin resistance. It creates a slow, silent fire inside your body that burns for years before you ever notice the damage. Think of it like a parasite that has latched onto your most vital organs and is quietly feeding off your inflammation while you go about your daily life completely unaware. Here's what makes visceral fat even scarier. You can be thin everywhere else and still have a dangerous amount of it packed inside you. Your arms could be slim, your face could look lean, your legs might not have an ounce of fat on them. But if your belly sticks out firm and hard, almost like you've swallowed a basketball, that is not bloating, that is not bad posture, that is visceral fat pressing against your abdominal wall from the inside. This condition even has a name. It's called TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. And doctors are now saying it can actually be more dangerous than being visibly obese, because at least when someone is visibly overweight, they know there's a problem to address. TOFI is the silent killer that hides in plain sight. So how do you know which kind of belly you're dealing with? Here's a simple test you can do right now. Stand up and press your hand into your stomach. If it feels soft, squishy, and moves around easily, the majority of what you're feeling is subcutaneous. That's the cosmetic fat, the vanity fat. Not ideal, but not immediately dangerous. But if you push on your belly and it feels tight, hard, and firm, if it protrudes even when you're lying down, if it feels solid rather than squishy, that is visceral fat. That firmness you feel is the pressure of fat that has packed itself around your organs. Your liver is literally being squeezed, your pancreas is being choked, and every single day you leave it there, the damage compounds quietly in the background.
Now is where the conversation completely shifts, because I am not here to scare you and leave you hopeless. The most remarkable thing about visceral fat is this: while it is the most dangerous fat in the human body, it also responds to the right approach faster than any other fat. It burns off quicker. It responds to targeted strategies more effectively than stubborn subcutaneous fat ever will. And there is a specific three-step approach backed by real clinical research that attacks visceral fat from three different angles simultaneously. It involves what you eat, what you drink, and how you move. And none of it requires starvation, extreme workouts, or expensive supplements. What it requires is understanding the biology and then working with your body instead of against it. Let us start with food. But I'm not going to insult you with generic advice like eat more vegetables. You deserve better than that. You need to understand the specific mechanism that makes certain foods a biological weapon against visceral fat. The root cause of visceral fat accumulation is something called oxidative stress. Here's the simplest way to understand it. Picture your cells as a car engine. When that engine runs too hot for too long, it starts to rust from the inside. That rust is oxidative stress. It damages your cells, it inflames your tissues, and visceral fat absolutely thrives in that environment. It feeds on it, it grows from it. So to shrink visceral fat, you do not just need to cut calories, you need to scrape off the rust. You need to flood your body with the most powerful natural antioxidants on Earth. Those antioxidants are called carotenoids, and they're hiding in plain sight in the produce section of your grocery store. Carotenoids are the pigments that give plants their vibrant colors, the deep orange in a carrot, the rich red in a tomato, the dark green in spinach. These are not just pretty colors, they are biological signals, and when you eat them, something extraordinary happens inside your body. Researchers in Japan conducted a double-blind clinical study where participants simply increased their intake of carotenoid-rich vegetables, specifically carrots and cabbage, for 8 weeks. No other changes, no extreme dieting, no marathon training sessions, just more color on the plate. The carotenoids went to work neutralizing the free radicals that were damaging their cells. But then, something even more remarkable happened. The carotenoids flipped a genetic switch. They literally turned on the genes responsible for fat burning and turned off the genes responsible for fat storage. Visceral fat dropped significantly in just 8 weeks. So your new relationship with food starts with one simple visual rule. If the food on your plate is beige, it is feeding the parasite. Bread, pasta, crackers, white rice, processed snacks, all of it comes from the beige category, and all of it contributes to the oxidative stress that visceral fat feeds on. But if the food on your plate is a vibrant orange, a deep red, a rich dark green, it is killing the parasite. Sweet potatoes, bell peppers, spinach, carrots, butternut squash, tomatoes, kale. Every meal should have at least one deeply colored vegetable on it, not as an afterthought, not as a side dish that gets ignored, but as the centerpiece. This is your shield. This is the rust remover that your body has been starving for.
Now let us talk about what you are drinking, because what goes into your cup matters almost as much as what goes onto your plate. You have probably heard that green tea helps with weight loss and maybe brushed it off as a wellness myth. I understand the skepticism. The supplement industry is full of exaggerated claims. But the mechanism behind green tea is real. It is specific, and once you understand it, you will never look at your morning drink the same way again. Green tea is packed with a family of compounds called catechins, and the one that matters most for visceral fat is called EGCG. Here's what EGCG actually does inside your body. Think of your fat cells as having a locked front door. Usually that door stays shut and the fat inside cannot get out to be burned. EGCG acts like a master key. It stimulates your nervous system in a way that boosts fat oxidation, meaning it signals your body to start burning stored fat for energy. It picks the lock and swings the door open. But EGCG does something else that is just as impressive. It inhibits an enzyme in your gut called lipase. Lipase is responsible for breaking down dietary fat so your intestines can absorb it. When you drink catechin-rich green tea with or after a meal, you're essentially putting a bouncer at the door of your digestive system and turning away a significant percentage of the fat before it ever gets a chance to be stored. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial showed that drinking high catechin green tea consistently for 12 weeks produced a meaningful reduction in visceral fat, not total weight, specifically visceral fat. But here's the critical warning. The bottled green teas you find at a convenience store or gas station are not going to do this. Most of them are loaded with sugar and contain almost no meaningful catechin concentration. You want matcha or sencha prepared from whole leaf green tea, because when you use the whole leaf, you're getting a dramatically higher concentration of EGCG than you would get from a standard tea bag.
And here's a bonus mechanism. The natural caffeine in the tea works in synergy with the catechins. The caffeine revs your metabolism and your nervous system, while the EGCG unlocks the fat cells. It's a biological 1-2 punch that your morning coffee simply cannot replicate. Now we arrive at the most critical piece of this entire conversation, and this is where most people either have a breakthrough or keep making the same mistake for years. Movement. Not just any movement, but the right kind of movement at the right intensity. Before you groan and assume I'm about to tell you to run marathons or spend 2 hours a day in the gym, hear me out, because the research on this is not only surprising, it's genuinely exciting. A landmark meta-analysis that synthesized the findings from 117 separate studies confirmed what a specific trial had already demonstrated in remarkable detail. In that trial, participants cycled on a stationary bike for just 45 minutes twice a week. That was the entire exercise protocol. 2 sessions a week, under an hour each time. After 2 months, the scale barely moved, and this is exactly why the scale is such a misleading and demoralizing tool. Because while the scale showed almost no change, their visceral fat had dropped by 48%. Nearly half of their dangerous internal belly fat was gone in 8 weeks. Their insulin sensitivity also improved by 41%, which is essentially the biological equivalent of reversing pre-diabetes.
But there was one very specific detail that made this possible, and if you miss this detail, you miss everything. They did not just cycle. They cycled at exactly 75% of their peak aerobic intensity. Not casual, not brutal, but precisely in the middle. That specific intensity zone is where the body preferentially burns visceral fat. Too easy, and your body stays in rest mode. Too intense, and you push yourself into a state where your stress hormone cortisol spikes, which can actually encourage your body to store more visceral fat rather than burn it. The sweet spot is what exercise physiologists call moderate to vigorous intensity, and you do not need any special equipment to find it. You just need to use the talk test. If you can sing a song comfortably while exercising, you are not working hard enough. If you cannot string together a single word, you are pushing too hard and raising your cortisol. The perfect zone is when you can speak in full sentences, but would honestly rather not. You sound a little winded, you feel warm, your heart is working, you feel like you have just climbed several flights of stairs and someone is trying to have a conversation with you. That slightly breathless, moderately uncomfortable feeling is exactly where visceral fat starts to disappear. Here is something else you need to understand about exercise that the diet industry does not want you to hear. There is a study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine that compared the effectiveness of diet versus exercise for eliminating visceral fat, and the findings were striking. Calorie restriction works to a point, but the human body is an incredibly adaptive survival machine. When you cut your calories drastically, your body eventually figures out what you are doing, and it slows your metabolism down to match your intake. It goes into starvation mode. It holds on to your fat stores as insurance. The results plateau. Exercise, on the other hand, showed a dose-dependent response for visceral fat reduction. That means the more you do, the more you lose, and researchers found no upper limit to that relationship. It does not plateau the way dieting does. Every additional workout created additional reduction in visceral fat with no ceiling in sight, which means the strategy is not to starve yourself into submission. The strategy is to eat enough real, colorful, nutrient-dense food to fuel your body properly, and then use movement to create the energy deficit that drives the fat away. Let us bring all of this together into something you can actually start tomorrow, because information without action is just entertainment. Your first move is to look at your plate at every single meal and ask yourself one question. Is there color here? Not beige, not brown, not beige pretending to be beige. Real, vibrant, deep color. Add 1 serving of a deeply colored vegetable to every meal without exception. Carrots with breakfast if you have to. Spinach in your eggs. Bell peppers in your lunch. Make color non-negotiable. Your second move is to swap your second cup of coffee each day for a properly brewed matcha or sencha green tea. No sugar, a squeeze of lemon can actually help with absorption. Keep it clean and drink it consistently. Your third move is to commit to 3 or 4 cardio sessions per week, each about 45 minutes long. It does not matter whether you cycle, run, row, swim, or walk up a steep hill with a backpack. What matters is that you use the talk test and stay in that slightly breathless, slightly uncomfortable zone. If you are perfectly comfortable, you are not burning the visceral fat. If you are gasping, slow down.
The most important thing I can leave you with is this. Consistency will always, always outperform perfection. The best exercise program in the world is the one you will still be doing 3 months from now. If you hate running, do not run. If cycling bores you, swim. If the gym feels like a punishment, take your dog for a fast walk on a hilly route. The modality is irrelevant. The heart rate is everything. Your body has an extraordinary capacity to heal itself when you stop giving it the wrong signals. Stop starving it. Stop doing 1,000 crunches targeting a fat that is not even under your skin. Start fueling it with the right pigments. Start moving it at the right intensity.